Well, good afternoon. Jennifer, if you want to go through what your company does and what your local office focuses on and give us kind of a broad overview of the work that you do in the community, that would be a great start.
Okay, great. Thanks, Stephanie. So Robert Half is an international staffing firm, and we really pride ourselves in providing solutions for talent with a variety of types of industries here in Spokane. So people ask us sometimes, who do you work with? Well, the answer is everyone, right? So our specialties would be anybody in accounting and finance at any level, and also anyone who works in an office who doesn't do accounting. So admin assistant, HR, customer service, sales, any of those type of office workers is where we specialize. And we can provide both contract talent as well as direct hire permanent talent. So that's what we do here in Spokane, and it really keeps us pretty busy.
So on the contract talent versus permanent placement, can you talk about some of the things employers should consider with those structures?
Yeah, very much. Thank you. So a contract employee would be excellent for situations, the most simplest terms would be situations in which there's more work to do than there is people to do it. Right? So think about, we just landed a special project and wow, this is going to generate a need for somebody to do some work in spreadsheets or photocopies or some accounting type work, a known short-term need. So instead of really overloading your employees who have the regular day job, you could say, why don't we bring in a part-time or full-time contractor to get this project done while our other employees focus on what they normally do best. So that's a great situation. A medical leave of some sort, leave of absence coverage, even vacation coverage. Think about when that receptionist or person who answers the phone is gone for a week. Sometimes you can have the whole team pitch in and answer the phones, but that's not always convenient or the best use of their time. So really just the simplest answer is anytime you've got more work to do than people to do it, and a full-time hire doesn't make sense. So that would be how we handle contract. On the candidate side, that generally means we're working with the unemployed population. And I would say most of those contractors are looking for permanent work down the road. But for them, it's just a short-term thing to get some money in the pocket, more experience while they look for something permanent. But I will say we probably have about 10, 15% of our candidate pool who just like contract work. So sometimes that works best for them too.
Got it. Offering them some flexibility of whatever fits their lifestyle.
Correct. Yep.
Sure. Sense. So you work closely with job seekers and candidates. Can you maybe talk about, I've been thinking about this of, during this time where there is somewhat of a labor shortage and it's a really competitive marketplace for employers. Do you hear some of the feedback on that kind of recruitment interview process? Can you give us some insights on some of the things that they maybe shouldn't be doing or should maybe pause and consider that is maybe problematic to that process?
And just to clarify for the candidates, their process?
Yes, yeah, if they're giving you feedback on some of the things they think employers are doing that, turn them off to maybe the company or the overall process.
Sure. A couple things. So this is the feedback and maybe some tips for employers out there. So first and foremost, the length of time it takes to get back to that candidate, right? Especially after multiple interviews have been done. And even multiple interviews is a bit of a cause for concern in this market for this time, right? I had a candidate the other day tell me she did 5 interviews with an organization. Way too many, especially for the type of role where this is a very mid-level type role. 5 interviews is out. If you can get it down to 1, that's ideal. 2 max. And if you're going to do 2, do it in the same period of a couple days, right? Not a couple weeks, a couple days. So time to get back to them, something like 60% of candidates, I just saw a survey the other day, if they don't hear back from a company within 2 weeks, they've totally lost interest. 2 weeks is way too long, especially for your best top talent. If you have somebody sitting in front of you right there that you love, make an offer on the spot. Don't let them leave. It's almost like the auto dealership, right? Don't let them leave without buying a car. Don't let that rock star leave without a job offer. That would be the way I would do it. Another thing I would mention is pay. Talk about pay early and often, right? If the pay is going to be a deal breaker, let's know that quickly and move on to the next thing. I personally am a fan of posting pay in job descriptions. Not everybody is, but that would be my piece of advice there is talk about pay early. That's often the reason people are looking for work, right? So let's get right to it.
How has COVID affected, if at all, your candidate pool?
Yeah. Well, it's smaller, as is everybody's, is what I would say. And there's a few reasons for that. Certainly there have been people who have not been able to work, right? So whether that's due to their own health situation, kids being at home. I had a son doing online school, wasn't fun. So there's that. There is, the question of unemployment. Certainly people have been had unemployment available to them. There's that. There's all the increase of remote work, which ironically has really shrunk our local job market, right? So today you have companies out of Seattle, California, New York, recruiting remote employees from Spokane and offering some pretty competitive wages out there. I just had a candidate just the other day get offered a role for a company out of Seattle, and she got offered 40% more than an average, for what a person would make here. So 100% remote, 40% more pay, that's a big deal. So I would say the candidate pool has shrunk for sure. And I think, unfortunately, it's going to continue to stay small. I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon.
Have you seen that certain industries are being harder hit, at least the industries that you have interaction with? Are you seeing that some of them are being harder hit in their ability to recruit and retain employees? And do you have any thoughts about what they could do to give themselves a competitive edge?
Yeah. I would say, I can't think of a company in an industry today that hasn't told me they're not only super busy with whatever they do, and they're having a hard time hiring. I do feel like it's pretty widespread. Here's where I see a common thread, and that's what there's a pool of people that I kind of in my own head call my Swiss Army knife employee. And this is the type of employee that could be a barista. They could work at a front desk. They could dig a ditch, be a laborer. They could do customer service over the phone. Like, they have a real variety of skills that could go all different directions. And I think what our clients are seeing is that for those types of roles, money matters. Generally those are going to be roles that are maybe that $16 to $20 an hour range. And so if you see a job that you're qualified to do to make $1 more an hour, that's going to change the way you live your life, right? And then on top of that, if we just talk about pay for a second, then we also talk about remote work. Well, what if now I can go from working as a barista, as an example, to working from home and work in a call center, and also eliminate my daycare bill because my kids are old enough to kind of be around, but not be on their own, right? That's a really double whammy of, wow, I may be making a little bit more money or the same, but then I don't have to pay for daycare. That's a big deal. So in my mind, it's that entry-level frontline type employee that is the hardest to recruit for, and they're also the jumpiest. And I say that not in a bad way, just meaning they have a lot of options, and they're kind of acting like this candidate army of, here's what we want. We want remote, we want higher pay, we want whatever it is, and they can get it.
So what can Robert Half do for these employers that are having a hard time finding employees that really they can't do on their own, they're not equipped to do on their own, maybe they don't know how to do on their own?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say in the contract world, what I would suggest is maybe you look to us for a temporary solution, a Band-Aid, so that you can hire thoughtfully, right? That may take longer. It will take longer in today's market, right? So maybe you say, hey, Jennifer, hey, Robert Half, I need a front desk person for at least 8 weeks while we conduct our search. Great. And if that person happens to be an excellent candidate, maybe you hire them, maybe you don't, but at least you've reduced the pain of all that extra work that's not being done, and hopefully reduce stress on others in the team. The last thing you want to do is have a retention issue right now, right? The focus on retention has to be high. That should be like a whole other discussion, right? So people will often bring in contractors not only to get the work done, hire thoughtfully, and reduce stress to the people that are here. So that's how we could help, I think, on a temporary solution. In terms of the permanent placement side, what we see a lot in our market with the permanent placement candidates is they're working, right? So they're generally working right now. they want to make a move, but it's not a 911, like they have to stop their job tomorrow, right? So they've called us and said, I want this salary, this job duties, remote, not remote, whatever. And as those things come up, we can share their profiles, right? These are what we call passive job seekers. They're probably not applying to ads, right? The other thing is that because Spokane is such a small town, they might not feel comfortable applying to ads, right? You know, they might say, well, I want to work at this company, but if I submit blindly this application, like who's going to see that? I work in a pretty high profile job, maybe. I don't know if I can really risk that, right? So I think on the permanent side, maybe we can offer candidates that companies aren't already seeing.
Nice.
Yeah.
You were talking a little bit about the remote talent support. And I think some of our small employers, everybody's been pushed in that direction.
Yeah.
But I think I read that you do offer some support for kind of that IT overhaul or that infrastructure. Is that true? Or is that?
That is true. Yeah, what we can offer is we have laptops that we've been able to deploy to some of our contract workers. So not so much on the permanent placement side, but you know, if we have a company that says, gosh, we need to hire 5 people to do this job, but we're just out of equipment, right? Everybody's out of equipment right now. Well, great, we have laptops that we can provide. There is a small charge, but sometimes that makes sense for a short period of time instead of them buying new equipment, investing all of that. Sure, we can provide a laptop, no problem. Yep.
And then can you talk a little bit on some of the compensation trends you're seeing in this market? It sounds like it's just increase to compete now with, you know, primary markets.
Right. Yeah, it really is. You know, some interesting stats. So Spokane has been right about 82% of the national average for pay for, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, a long time. Whereas say Seattle as a comparison has been about 125% of the national averages. You know, so we're known to pay less. We have been traditionally a cheaper market to live in. Now, my husband's a realtor. So, you know, last June, the average home price was like $295,000. Today, I want to say it's around $370,000. It's a 30% swing. Wages have got to come up, you know, for a number of reasons. So it's just over time, we're not as cheap to live here anymore. But yeah, you know, what we've seen is that pay trends have continued to go up, excuse me. And it's almost always true that you have to pay more to attract the same talent to replace the job, right? So just in the last month, I've heard of 2 types of companies, 2 separate industries that both told me from a retention standpoint, we're going to give everybody a 10% raise just across the board. You know, we want to bring our pay up. That's the number we're going to choose. And this is, you know, these are larger companies with hundreds of employees. I thought, well, that's a pretty smart thing. It's got to hurt the wallet a little bit, but it's not out of line, you know, based on what we're seeing in the market. And, you know, a company the other day, they said, you know, okay, Jennifer, just bottom line this for me. Do I need to spend more money on personnel? And I was like, that is exactly correct. Yes, sometimes that is 10% more, sometimes it's 20% more. And I know that's hard to hear. But I guess that the quicker we can, as a community, as business owners, get to that is just a fact right now. And the more we can offer to be competitive, the better. Now, one thing I would say sometimes is maybe you think about a stair step option. So maybe you attract talent in at a competitive wage, but then you also say, you know what, because you are so good, I will consider giving you a raise after 60 days or 90 days. Versus 1 year in. So you could stair step that pay up. Flexible work schedules, remote options. We will see people sometimes take a little bit less money if they can be remote. That may matter to them. Benefits still matter a ton to a certain population. Now, some companies, depends on who your demographic is, right? If you're hiring a traditionally very young workforce who can be on their parents' benefits till their age, you know, what, 25, 26, that may not be appealing to them. You know, so thinking about who's my target market, what could be appealing, and maybe what can I offer that is not, if I can't offer the dollars, what else can I do, right?
And you talked about some people may be willing to take less money for a remote work situation, which is what I've been reading as well. Do you think that employers need to be open to continued remote working as long as it's conducive to the type of business that they have? Do you think that they need to be open to
I
that?
do. I really do. And, I think about companies like the manufacturing company. Well, of course, things need to be done on site. That makes sense. But every office person, every office member that you have probably could do a similar job in an office for a different company that may offer remote work, right? Like that's where the competition is what you're going to see. So yeah, I got to say that the lid's been blown off on remote work. And the key there, I think, is, well, first of all, it's hiring the right people, right? If my own personal opinion is if you absolutely just don't trust your team to work at home, I'd be going, do we have the right people in place, right? And number two, you have to have good measures for success, right? And most businesses certainly have that, right? So as long as those measures of success can be met, clear schedules can be followed, it's doable. I mean, if you would have asked me, a year and a half ago, if we had about 110 contractors out working remote jobs, and after that initial shutdown, we still had about 60 out working remotely. I'm not kidding, with zero problems, and I think they were so happy at that point to have a job. We all were, right? It was such a weird time. It can work, for the right individual, for the right position, for the right company. But I do think that companies will be really pushed in that direction. So, yeah.
Great. Well, oh, go ahead, Jennifer.
Sorry, I was just going to get back to more foundational questions about what you actually do for employers. Do you do, when you're, you have an employer that comes to you, they're looking for someone to fill a particular position, what kind of how's the vetting process work? Do you do screening? I mean, it probably depends on what type of a position it is as far as how much screening you do, but do you do just like a standard baseline type screening for all employees or prospective employees? How does that work?
Yeah, I would say for whether it's contract or whether it's permanent placement, there's a few basic things that happen. Number one, we always do a video interview just like this, so just via Microsoft Teams, we always see them in person, have that video interview. And the idea is, before we talk about any jobs that we're working on for clients, is really, what does this candidate want? What kind of pay are you looking for? What's the commute? What are all the things that you want? And, I will tell any candidate today, if you're going to ask for something, today's the time to do it, right? So let's get clear on what you really want and what could be a deal breaker, right? So let's build a profile for you. Number two, we do some assessments based on skill set and job, right? So if we're talking the accounting side, we can test on things like payroll skills or Excel skills. We can test on those things. Number three, we will also do reference checks, similar to most employers. So we will check past work and experience, check with those supervisors. I would say that those are the hard things that we do. Well, where the art of recruiting, I think, comes in is always when we first talk to a client about what they're looking for, again, whether it's contract or permanent, the question is always, okay, great, these are the job duties. I can probably find that person. What are the soft skills, right? What personalities work and don't work for this culture, for this job? Let us kind of play matchmaker there, right? So when we're asking that candidate proactively before we talk about jobs, what are the things you like? What are the things you don't like? What we find is that candidates, and even clients too, really, because we're not the exact candidate or the exact interviewing, client, we get very transparent information, right? Which really helps us, I think, make the best possible match.
Well, thank you for your time today. Is there anything else you think our kind of member business employer audience should hear about your organization? Any nuggets of wisdom you want to leave us with?
Oh, thank you. Well, I have a nugget and maybe a piece of knowledge. Here's a knowledge nugget, and maybe, again, just my opinion, but I would, if I were a small to medium-sized business today in Spokane, I would try to do two things. Number one, make sure you're educated on what is the market out there for pay, for benefits. How does my company compare to others? You have to know that information. And here's the good news, it's all on Indeed, like it's all out there to see, right? So that's number one, get educated. And number two is, once you are educated, know that there might be scenarios in which you just can't compete. You're not Bank of America, you're not Amazon. That's okay. Then focus on, well, what can I do? especially on the culture side, which we haven't really even touched yet, but I'll tell you that, culture and pay tie pretty regularly for the number one reason people leave jobs. So, and that starts from the top down. So that's something that you can control, nobody else, right? So get educated and then focus inward. I think if a company is really working hard to retain their employees, create an excellent culture, all of those things will fall into place.
Great. That was very insightful.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. We really want to help. So, a company can call us anytime. We love to brainstorm about things. We have lots of data we can share. So in terms of what we can do for members or yourself, I would just know that we're consultants, we love to help. So call or get in touch anytime.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that your information is put up on the microsite and the employers can reach out to you very easily. So.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having this conversation. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
You're welcome.